The alien fleet hovered above Earth, their massive ships casting dark shadows over the cities below. For centuries, they had observed humans, analyzing their wars, their fragile bodies, and their emotional instability. To the invaders, humans were nothing more than a weak, chaotic species, barely capable of surviving without their primitive technology. When the invasion began, the aliens expected resistance, but what they found was something entirely different: silence. The human armies surrendered almost immediately. Governments crumbled overnight. The world, once filled with noise and conflict, fell into an eerie stillness. The aliens were surprised. Had humans truly given up so easily? Had they accepted their fate without a fight? It almost felt too easy. The first few weeks of occupation went smoothly. The aliens established control over major cities, enslaved millions, and dismantled human defenses. They saw no signs of rebellion, no underground movements, no desperate last stands. It was unlike any other conquest they had ever executed. The humans did not resist, and that alone made the invaders uneasy. But they dismissed their concerns, believing that their superior intelligence had simply overwhelmed this primitive race. However, something was strange. Reports began surfacing of alien patrols disappearing in the night. Soldiers went missing without a trace. Security footage showed nothing, just a sudden static interference before entire squads vanished. At first, the aliens assumed it was technical failure. But as the disappearances increased, they realized something was wrong. The humans were doing something, but how? They had no weapons, no resources, no leadership. How were they striking back? Then came the first real attack. A supply convoy, heavily guarded and carrying valuable alien technology, was ambushed in the ruins of a once great city. The attackers left no survivors. When the aliens examined the scene, they found something: chilling human bodies. Yes, but also dead alien soldiers with their own weapons used against them. The invaders realized the truth too late. The humans had never surrendered. They had never accepted defeat. They had simply waited, watching, studying, and adapting. The aliens had mistaken silence for submission, but in reality, it had been preparation. The humans were not weak. They were patient, and patience was far more dangerous than brute strength. Panic spread among the invaders. Their strategies were failing. Their enemies were unpredictable, untraceable. The humans did not fight traditional battles. They struck from the shadows, using the aliens' own technology against them. They did not hold ground, did not form large armies that could be easily targeted. Instead, they moved like ghosts, appearing and disappearing before the aliens could react. And the worst part? They were learning. The invaders had spent years studying human biology, but they had never truly understood human nature. They had assumed that humans, once broken, would remain broken. But humans did not break. They adapted, they evolved, and they became something far more terrifying than the aliens had ever imagined. As weeks turned into months, the war changed. The invaders, once the hunters, became the hunted. Alien soldiers refused to patrol alone. Officers feared staying on the ground for too long. Even their advanced technology could not protect them from an enemy that fought without rules, without fear. The humans had mastered deception, using psychological warfare to weaken the aliens' morale. Distorted voices whispered through their communication channels. False distress signals lured them into traps. Mysterious symbols appeared on walls, written in the blood of their fallen comrades. Fear spread like wildfire among the invaders, and for the first time in their history, they began to doubt their own superiority. Then came the final blow. The aliens had relied on their massive mothership, a fortress in the sky that controlled all their operations. It was impenetrable, indestructible, or so they thought. One night, as the city below burned, a small human team infiltrated the ship. They had no advanced weapons, no high-tech armor, just their stolen knowledge and an unbreakable will to survive. They bypassed security, planted explosives, and disappeared before the aliens even realized what had happened. When the mothership exploded, lighting up the night sky like a second sun, the message was clear: the war was over. And the so-called weakest species had won. In the end, the aliens did not just lose the battle. They lost their belief in their own superiority. They had come to conquer, but instead they had been outwitted, outlasted, and outmatched by a species they had considered insignificant. As the remaining alien ships fled the planet, carrying survivors back to their homeworld, they left behind a chilling warning for the rest of the galaxy: never underestimate the humans. The alien overlords believed they had won. Their ships dominated Earth's skies, their soldiers patrolled its streets, and human governments had collapsed under their overwhelming power. Cities burned, and silence filled the air where once there had been laughter, music, and life. The invaders walked among the ruins, convinced that humanity was broken, that their spirits had been crushed beyond repair. They were wrong. Deep in the shadows, beneath the ruins, and within the hearts of those who had survived, a fire still burned, a fire that had never died and never would. The first sparks of rebellion were small. A missing alien patrol here, a sabotaged supply line there. The aliens dismissed these incidents as minor inconveniences, nothing more than the desperate struggles of a dying species. But as days turned into weeks, the attacks grew bolder. Human resistance fighters began to strike with precision, hitting alien bases, stealing weapons, and vanishing into the night. The invaders, for all their superior technology, could not predict or contain the chaos. They relied on order, on logic, on a structured battlefield where they always had the advantage. But humans? Humans thrived in chaos. The first real sign of fear among the aliens came when an entire base, heavily guarded and fortified, went silent. No distress signals, no last-minute transmissions, just complete and utter silence. When reinforcements arrived, they found only ruins, charred metal, and the bodies of their own kind. It was impossible. The humans had no advanced weapons, no ships, nothing that should have allowed them to destroy an alien stronghold. Yet, they had done it. The aliens studied the wreckage, trying to understand, but there was nothing logical about what had happened. It was not brute force that had brought the base down, it was something else. Strategy, deception, pure unrelenting willpower. And above all, a refusal to surrender. Across the planet, the fire spread. The resistance was no longer a scattered movement. It was an unstoppable force. Farmers, teachers, engineers, soldiers, people who had nothing left to lose rose against their conquerors. They wore no uniforms, carried no flags, and answered to no central command. They were unpredictable, invisible, and absolutely fearless. The aliens found themselves at war with an enemy that refused to fight by the rules. They would take over a city one day, only to find it sabotaged the next. They would secure a stronghold, only to have their own weapons used against them in ambushes. The humans had learned to turn weakness into strength, to use the enemy's own technology as a weapon against them. They stole alien rifles, hacked communication lines, and poisoned rations. They played dirty, and it worked. As fear crept into the alien ranks, discipline began to break. Some soldiers refused to go on patrols at night, knowing that no one who walked into the dark returned. Others reported hearing whispers through their comms' distorted voices, speaking in a language they could not understand. The messages weren't random. They were warnings. Promises of revenge. The aliens had come expecting an easy conquest, but what they found was a nightmare that only grew worse with time. They had made one fatal mistake. They had left humans alive. And as long as a single human drew breath, the fight would never end. Then came the moment that changed everything. A high-ranking alien commander, responsible for some of the worst massacres against humanity, was found dead, his body displayed in the ruins of a once great city. He had not been killed in battle. He had been hunted, executed, a symbol for his kind to see. The message was clear: no one was untouchable. The invaders had come as gods, but now they bled like mortals. Fear spread through their empire faster than any human virus. Commanders stopped trusting their soldiers. Soldiers stopped trusting their technology. Even their mighty war machines, once thought invincible, were no longer safe. They were hacked, turned against their own creators, or destroyed in ways that defied logic. The humans had figured them out, adapted to their weaknesses, and now the invaders had nowhere to hide. With every victory, the fire of resistance burned brighter. It was no longer just about survival, it was about revenge. Humanity had suffered, but now it was their enemies who knew true fear. The battle had shifted. The aliens were no longer conquerors, they were prey. And in the end, no matter how strong, how advanced, or how powerful they were, they had underestimated the one thing that made humans unstoppable: their will. No matter how much they lost, no matter how badly they were beaten, humans never truly gave up. They could be knocked down 1,000 times, but they would always rise again, fiercer, stronger, and more determined than before. The aliens had set fire to Earth, believing they had burned away its resistance. But instead, they had only fueled the flames. And that fire, the fire that had always burned within humanity, would never die. The aliens had always believed humans to be weak. Their invasion had been swift, their victory effortless. Cities fell within days, armies crumbled, and the once proud species bowed before their new masters. The invaders had seen this happen on countless worlds before, primitive civilizations breaking under the weight of superior technology. But something was different this time. The humans were not like other species. They did not accept defeat. They did not beg for mercy. They did not submit. At first, the aliens thought the small pockets of resistance were nothing more than desperate attempts by a broken people. Sabotaged supply lines, missing patrols, and unexplained disappearances were ignored as minor inconveniences. But soon, those inconveniences became impossible to ignore. Entire alien outposts were wiped out in a single night. Cities they had secured were suddenly abandoned, as if the humans had vanished into thin air. And then, when the aliens moved in to investigate, the real horror began. It was not war. It was not even resistance. It was something far worse. The humans did not fight with honor, nor did they follow any rules of engagement. They struck from the shadows, attacked without warning, and left behind nothing but fear. Alien soldiers who had once walked the streets with arrogance now moved in groups, their weapons drawn at all times. They whispered among themselves, their voices filled with uncertainty. They had come to conquer monsters, but now it felt like they were the ones being hunted. The humans had changed. They had evolved. They had become something else, something far more terrifying than the aliens had ever imagined. One by one, the invaders' greatest weapons were turned against them. Their towering war machines, once symbols of their dominance, were hijacked and used to destroy their own bases. Their advanced technology, once thought to be beyond human understanding, was hacked and reprogrammed. The humans did not just fight back, they adapted. They studied their enemies, learned their weaknesses, and exploited them mercilessly. And worst of all, they had patience. They did not rush into battle. They waited, watching, calculating. They let the aliens think they were in control, and then, when the time was right, they struck with the precision of a predator that had spent years stalking its prey. The fear among the aliens grew. Stories spread of soldiers who went missing, their bodies found days later, mutilated beyond recognition. Others spoke of whispers in the night, distorted voices that echoed through their communication systems, taunting them, reminding them that no matter where they hid, the humans would find them. Even their leaders were not safe. High-ranking commanders were assassinated in their own heavily guarded chambers, their deaths serving as a brutal reminder that no one was untouchable. It was no longer a war. It was a nightmare. And for the first time in their long history of conquest, the aliens felt something they had never felt before: pure, unrelenting terror. Desperation set in. The invaders deployed even more brutal tactics, burning entire cities to the ground in an attempt to flush out the resistance. They executed civilians, hoping to break the human spirits. But instead of fear, they only fueled the rage that burned within humanity. The humans did not surrender. They did not run. They fought harder, more viciously, with a level of determination that the aliens could not comprehend. The more the invaders tried to crush them, the more monstrous the humans became. The resistance was no longer just a movement. It was an infection spreading across the planet, consuming everything in its path. The aliens had underestimated them. They had seen them as nothing more than fragile creatures, easy to conquer. But now they saw the truth. The humans were not weak. They were not prey. They were something else entirely. Then came the final act of defiance, the moment that changed everything. The humans managed to breach the invaders' main command center, a fortress thought to be impenetrable. The aliens had believed their technology, their security, their sheer power would keep them safe. But nothing could stop the monsters they had created. The humans tore through their defenses, using stolen weapons and strategies that defied logic. They fought like demons, relentless and unstoppable. The aliens tried to retreat, to escape back into the safety of their ships, but it was too late. The fortress fell, and with it, so did the invaders' last hope of controlling the planet. As the alien survivors fled Earth, their ships leaving behind trails of smoke and fire, they finally understood the true nature of the species they had tried to conquer. Humans were not just another civilization to be subdued. They were something far worse. They were creatures that refused to die, creatures that thrived in destruction, creatures that, when pushed to the edge, became the very nightmares that haunted their enemies. The aliens had come to Earth believing they were the ultimate predators. But in the end, they had only awakened the real monsters. The war had lasted longer than anyone had expected. The alien invaders, with their unstoppable armies and advanced technology, had brought humanity to the brink of extinction. Earth was no longer a home. It was a battlefield, covered in ash and ruins. Entire continents had fallen under alien rule, and what little remained of human civilization was scattered, fighting a war that seemed hopeless. The invaders had won every major battle. They had crushed the armies, destroyed the cities, and wiped out all organized resistance. Yet, despite all their victories, the war was not over. Humanity still lived, still fought, still resisted in ways the aliens could not understand. The humans had nothing left, but they refused to surrender. And now, as the final days of the war approached, they had one last plan, one final gamble. Deep underground, hidden beneath the ruins of what was once a great city, the last remnants of the human resistance gathered. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, everyone who had survived this long had come together for one last desperate attempt to turn the tide. They knew they couldn't win a traditional war. The aliens were stronger, smarter, and had the advantage in every way that mattered. But humans had never won wars by playing fair. They had always won by doing the impossible. And this time would be no different. The plan was simple in theory, but nearly suicidal in execution. They would attack the alien command ship, the heart of the invasion, the fortress from which the enemy controlled their entire war effort. If they could take it down, they could cripple the invaders, throw them into chaos, and give humanity a fighting chance. It was a long shot, a desperate act of defiance. But it was all they had left. The mission began under the cover of darkness. A small team of highly trained operatives, each carrying stolen alien weapons and wearing enemy armor, infiltrated the main alien base. Every step was a gamble, every breath a risk. If even one mistake was made, they would all die before even reaching the ship. But luck, or perhaps fate, was on their side. They moved like shadows, slipping past security, hacking into systems, and disabling alarms. The aliens were confident in their defenses, too arrogant to believe that the humans could get this far. That arrogance was their weakness. Reaching the command ship was only the beginning. The true challenge lay inside. The ship was a fortress of metal and light, guarded by the most elite alien warriors. Every corridor was a death trap, every corner a potential ambush. But the humans had come prepared. They did not fight head-on. They used deception, sabotage, and psychological warfare. They lured enemies into traps, turned their own technology against them, and disappeared into the shadows before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens, for all their power, were not prepared for a battle like this. They relied on strength and strategy, but the humans relied on something much deadlier, desperation. As the team moved deeper into the ship, they finally reached their target, the central control core, the brain of the entire invasion. Destroying it would not only disable the ship, but also disrupt the entire alien network. Communications would collapse, coordination would fail, and for the first time, the invaders would know fear. The team set the explosives, every second feeling like an eternity. Alarms blared, footsteps echoed through the halls, time was running out. The aliens had finally realized what was happening, and now the entire ship was hunting them. But it was too late. With a final push, the team fought their way to the escape pods, barely making it out before the ship erupted in a blinding explosion. Fire consumed the sky as the command ship, the symbol of alien dominance, fell from the heavens like a dying star. The shockwaves spread across the battlefield, and suddenly, the invaders found themselves without orders, without leadership, without direction. Panic spread among their ranks, and for the first time since the war began, the tide shifted. Humanity had been on the edge of destruction, but with one final gamble, they had turned everything around. The invaders had come believing they could not lose. But they had underestimated the one thing that made humans truly dangerous, their refusal to accept defeat. As the alien forces crumbled and retreated, one message was clear. Humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. And as long as one human remained standing, the war would never truly be over. The aliens came to Earth expecting an easy victory. They had conquered countless worlds before, breaking civilizations with their superior weapons, unmatched intelligence, and ruthless efficiency. To them, humans were just another species to be wiped out or enslaved primitive creatures with nothing but emotions and outdated technology. The war was over before it even began. Earth's defenses fell, cities burned, and billions perished in the first waves of destruction. The survivors were scattered, hunted like animals, their resistance nothing more than an annoyance to the invaders. The aliens believed they were the apex predators, the ultimate rulers of the galaxy. But they had made a mistake, one they wouldn't realize until it was far too late. At first, the humans who remained were weak, broken, barely surviving. They hid in the ruins, scavenging for supplies, evading patrols, and watching as their world was taken from them. But something changed. The longer they were hunted, the more they adapted. Fear turned into rage, desperation into strategy. The aliens had expected surrender, but instead, they had created something far more dangerous, a new kind of predator. The humans began to strike back, not as soldiers, but as hunters. They learned the enemy's weaknesses, studied their behavior, and turned the invaders' own tactics against them. Alien patrols started to vanish. Supply routes were disrupted. Weapons meant to suppress humanity were stolen and used against their creators. The invaders, who had once walked the earth as conquerors, now moved cautiously, always looking over their shoulders, knowing that something was out there, waiting for them in the dark. The first true sign of fear came when an entire alien outpost was wiped out overnight. There was no explosion, no battle, no warning. The soldiers stationed there simply disappeared. When reinforcements arrived, they found nothing but bloodstains and scattered weapons. No human bodies. No survivors. Just a message scrawled in the invaders' own language, burned into the walls. "We see you?" The aliens dismissed it as an isolated event, a desperate act by a dying species. But then it happened again, and again. The pattern became clear. Humans weren't just resisting. They were hunting, and they were getting better at it. The invaders relied on advanced technology, but the humans had something more dangerous: instinct. They didn't fight like an army. They fought like predators, moving in silence, striking fast, and disappearing before the enemy could react. The aliens, despite all their strength, were not used to being prey. Their discipline began to crack. Soldiers refused to patrol at night. Commanders doubled security, but it made no difference. The humans were always one step ahead. They didn't need massive weapons or superior firepower. They had patience. They had cunning. And they had nothing left to lose. Panic spread through the alien ranks. Soldiers reported hearing whispers in the dark, voices speaking in a language they didn't understand. Their technology failed them, cameras went blind, drones malfunctioned, communication lines were hijacked. The invaders began to turn on each other, blaming their own kind for the growing failures. Some even started to believe that the humans had evolved, that they had become something more than just survivors. They weren't fighting the same weak creatures they had invaded months ago. They were fighting something new, something terrifying. Then came the final proof. One of the alien warlords, a being feared across the galaxy, was found dead in his own command ship. He had been surrounded by guards, protected by the most advanced security in existence. And yet, he was gone, his body left on display, a warning to the rest of his kind.